gamers, I'm going to explain to you something that I thought everybody does, but after talking to my Twitch chat just now, I don't know if I'm the weird one or they're the weird one. But I'm going to show you, there was a Reddit thread, a little trick I found to use control groups faster, and this person mentions, this made me wonder how pros assign and remove their control groups so quickly and efficiently. I watched this video of Beastyqt's hand and saw that he uses his palm to click the control key. So, I thought this is something that everybody does, so I'm going to explain exactly what it is. So, this is my keyboard right here, and when I play RTS games, or actually any game for that matter, I'm going to lower this right here. The way I play is next. So, if I am I have my control groups right here for RTS, and then you have your hotkeys for different stuff. So this is my normal hand position. I'm trying to how to, okay, there we go. So this is my normal position, how I rest my hand on my keyboard. So 1, 2, 3 is here, and you know, if I need to click anything, boom, 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 I use my thumb for these keys, and then my pinky is kind of resting to the side, and I only use pinky to click shift. Now, what the chat was flipping out is the fact that I use palm of my hand to hit control key. So for example, I'm gonna enter a game here to show you guys. Whenever I assign control groups or I change control groups or whatever, I use my palm of my hand to do that. So I don't use pinky to click here and then do stuff, because it's very awkward and inefficient, right? To go from this position to this, you have to kind of move your fingers backwards in order to click that. So what I do is right now I'm clicking my control. You guys can't see, but right now I'm clicking my control. So when I'm playing the game, you can see right now I'm holding the control again. I'm not even doing it on purpose. So if I am playing and I'm trying to move my units, I'm gonna try to put it like this so you guys can see what's happening. Let's say all these units are like this. If I want to hotkey my scout, I'm keeping my hand like this, and I just do this. It's now 1. If I select these villagers, I can hotkey them to 2 and 3 because I'm holding control with my palm. So I thought this is something that everybody does, but apparently it's not. So people ask me, how do you not hit the Windows key? Well, I'm not you know, slamming onto it. I'm just lightly pressing on the side, like here. Because the way my arm is, like this, right? I only need to tilt it a bit to this side in order to do it. So I do this for everything. Like if I'm playing normally, this is what it looks like. So I'm using control like all the time, and I'm reassigning groups and stuff like that. If I need to add units to the control group, so someone asked me what happens if you need to use shift to add units to the control group, I don't do that. I always make new control groups. So if there are a lot of units on the screen, what I might do is something like this, where I'm holding shift with my pinky and then I'm just selecting a bunch of units. And the moment I do that, I switch to palm and then I put them in group 1. So I don't always add units like this with shift, because it's very inefficient, because you need to kind of move your hand in a weird way, if that makes sense. So what I do is I just use control instead, and if I have an army here or something, I'll just select it, control 1, in order to make, basically you override the first control group that you had and you make a new one. Now regarding other stuff, if you have your hand in a resting position like this, and by the way, I am no expert on keyboards and hands, right? This is just how I use my keyboard and how I play, and I've been playing RTS games for 30 years now. I always like to keep my hand in a resting position on the keyboard, and you should always get the keyboards that once you put your hand in a resting position, it feels very comfortable and you have a good reach of everything, right? So this is where my U is. So in this position, you can see I don't have to really move a lot. I can reach all the way to UJ. I can reach all the way to 8. I actually use 8 for my hotkeys, so I can quickly reach that. And you should always get a keyboard that feels good for your hands. Some people have smaller hands, some people have bigger hands. But in my opinion, the best keyboards that you should get are always the keyboards that are smaller like this. This is a keyboard without a numpad. It just feels a lot better to use. The keys are not spaced out as much as some of the other keyboards, so it makes it a lot easier to use. And you don't have to run your hand around the keyboard too much. And obviously you don't want to use two hands if you're playing RTS games. So that's why I only use one. So when I'm playing AoE 4 or when I used to play StarCraft 2, this is the extent of my hand moving, right? So it's very like efficient. It's not me like going around or like doing awkward movement with like pinky or something like that. If I need to press control, like I said, I use palm. Shift, I use pinky. Tab, I use pinky as well because it's right there. I also use this hotkey, which is for me select all idle army or select all army hotkey, depending what game you're playing, which I also use this one. I don't know what this one is called in English. So I use that one, and then pinky again is for tab, maybe shift, stuff like that. Now, the way I use Z, X, and C, I press with my thumb. C, V, B, N, and M. I use all those hotkeys. I press it with my thumb because, again, it's very like natural. It's here, and I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to move other fingers or reposition my hand. And obviously, space, you can use this as well. Alt, if I need to do it, if I need to do something with it like this, I use my thumb as well because it's very, again, my three fingers on top are not moving. They're constantly there, so I can do stuff while clicking these buttons at the bottom. So I'm not repositioning my hand. Z and X, I usually press with this one. So if I need to do something there, I go like this. But I try to not hotkey stuff on those keys. So for example, in AoE 4, there's a formation toggle. So C is very easy because I can do it with my thumb. But Z is a bit harder to press, so I kind of need to move my hand, which is why I don't like using Z and X for my hotkeys for a lot of stuff. Other than that, ASD, you can also, you know, you go like this, select one for control groups, A for A move, and you can swap quickly between those. So when you're playing a game and you have different control groups, you kind of go like this. And you don't really press multiple buttons at the same time. Sometimes people ask me, like, do you ever fat finger or you press a button you don't need or something like that? I mean, that comes with years and years of practice. Like, I can do this, and you know, I've been doing this for a very long time, where you're pressing like 1A move, 2A move, 3A move, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of it. These three, like I said, are very important to stay right here. I don't know if the chat has any other questions. How do I reset camera? I reset camera with my right hand because my mouse is usually around here. So I can quickly do this, but I don't reset camera very often in AoE 4. So maybe sometimes at the start of the game I'll do this so I can get a better angle, and I'll just do this and I keep playing. How do I press delete? Just go like this, depending what the situation is. So sometimes I'll select my villagers and I'll go like this. Sometimes I'll go like this with this finger. So it depends on the situation. That's something I could probably do more efficiently, to like put it on, I don't know, Y or something, so it's closer and it's better. But I also don't delete units in AoE 4 very often, so there's no need for it. How do you press escape? There you go. See that? My hand, again, is the same position. Look, boom, 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 boom. So, yeah. I thought this is what everybody uses, the palm thing. But after I mentioned it in the Twitch chat, a lot of people were kind of like, what the hell are you doing? So, I was like, I might as well make a video if this many people didn't know about this. Maybe I should just make a video because it might help some of you. I think a lot of people struggle with pressing shift and control keys because they're so far down, so it's always kind of awkward to press it. So maybe that helps. The keyboard that I'm using, this keyboard, which is it's wireless or it can be wired, it's up to you, is Apex Pro wireless. And like I said, in the past, whenever I used other keyboards, I always aimed for this side of keyboard, or this size of a keyboard, the way it's like built, the keys and everything, because it feels pretty good. Also, the way keys are set up, it's very hard to fat finger these unless you have, you know, no precision. But if you've been playing the games for a while, you should be more than fine. So yeah, do you guys have any other questions in the chat? Yeah, the keyboard is the keys are custom, so I added like the white and then the glow is orange. So the keyboard, I think, is just black keys, and I just added the white ones because I like the way it looks. And obviously I like orange because my logo is orange. How do you manage to control, how you manage control groups by only using control and not shift to add to control groups? So again, if I have, let's say this is my control group. Okay, so let's say this is an army, this is an army, this is an army. So if it's on one screen, I'll just do this. And I'll basically, what I just did is, I don't know why I moved this. What I did is I just held with my palm. So I'll show again. This is the control group number 1. If the units are on one screen, I'll just select them all and press Control 1. And there's an option in settings where you don't, you basically remake the control group when you use control. So that's what I'm using. Now, if the units are maybe like here and here, let me show you. So if I have control group number 1 here and I want to add these units, then because I'm going around, I'll hold shift like this with my pinky. So I'll hold shift while having number 1 control group selected. I'll hold shift and I'll do this and then add them to control group number 1 with control. Because I am not adding them, because I pre-selected number 1, I am basically using shift to select them, and then I use control to create a new group that's control group number 1. Does that make sense? So in reality, this is what that looks like in you know, normal time, not in slow motion. So if I have control group here and there's more units over here, I go like this and they're hotkeyed all to number 1. If I want to swap them to multiple control groups or I want to spread them out, now there are 3 different control groups, 1 control group. I can swap them out, swap them in, I can do whatever I want with it, right? And that's how I use it. How to reach control groups 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I use only up to 8. And 8, I usually use my my idle, more idle production, if you will. So I use 8 for stuff like military schools or monasteries that you're not going to be using very often. But let's say I'm building a monastery and I want to make a scholar, prelate, monk, whatever. I'll go like this, 8, and then I queue with the pinky. Okay, so 8 I only use for pretty much inactive stuff. 7 I can reach pretty comfortably. Again, 7 and then Q, W, whatever I need. So you can see if I'm playing the game, I can just go like this. So 4 is my town center, so 4Q. That's easy, right? 4Q. Just make villagers. 5 is my barracks or stable, so I can go 5 W, 5Q, whatever I need. 6QW, whatever I need. Like this. And then 7 is a bit reaching it, but it's still fine, and I use it pretty much all the time. I mean, a lot of these things come with practice, and you know, you're not gonna learn any of these things in one day, and you're probably gonna misclick a lot, but at this point I'm so used to this that it's just kind of how it is. I can show you another example here. Do you have to tab through production control groups? No, I don't tab. I have different hotkeys for every production building. During the fights, you repeatedly change control groups for your military and then recontrol other units as the fight progresses. If I'm going through different control groups in the army while the fight is happening, I'm either target firing something or I'm moving one part of the army back and then A moving again and stuff like that. So again, let's say these are 3 different armies. So I'll send my 2 scouts, and let's say these are just different armies, okay, in my base. So this is number 1, this is number 2. This is my town center where I'm making stuff, right? So what ends up happening is if this scout is over here, and let's say I want to add this group to number 1, this group to number 2, and 3 over here, this is what I'll do. I'll send this guy over here, send this guy over here. I'll use 4 to get back to my town center. So double tap to my town center. I select these with one already selected, add control group number 1. I select scout number 2, shift click for these, control group number 2. So now those guys are, this is 1, this is 2, and it goes pretty easy. Now in real time, this is what it looks like. So move it closer a bit. So in real time, this is what it looks like. If I'm scouting around, I go back to my TC, and now we can move both units each side, right? And again, this takes a lot of practice, but this is just how I use it. And now, if you want to reposition, or if I want to add this control group to the previous one, let's say I'm trying to meet the armies in the middle, what I can do is I'm basically spamming 1 and 2 and right-clicking on my mouse to move them. So what I can do is, if I want to control these units together, I can just add control group number 2 and 3 to control group number 1, and then override all the control groups that I just add to be 1, 2, and 3. And if I want to get a new army out, let's say this is a new army, I can hotkey them to 2 and 3, and this army is now 1. Does that make sense? So that's how I do it. I don't know. This always made sense to me. I don't know if it makes sense for a lot of for other people, but that's just how I do it. And this is why I always have 1, 2, and 3 control groups on a lot of my stuff, because if this is, again, if this is control group number 1 and this control group number 2, because I use control to add units to each other, if I select both of these and I make them control group number 1, the way I use the hotkey settings, this group is now 2, 3, and 1, and this hotkey group is only 1. So in order to prevent me misclicking, like accidentally or something, what I do is that I make all these units 1, 2, and 3, and then if I move a new army out, I'll select it as 2 and 3, and then this means that this control group will only be number 1 from here on out. So I do this whenever I play, you know, actual games. This happens pretty fast, so a lot of people don't know why I have stuff in multiple control groups, because when I do this, I don't do like 1, 2, 3, right? This happens in a moment. Like, it just goes like this, and sometimes I don't even show it. Maybe I'll be in my base, I'll hotkey them now, and now they're hotkeyed to all 3 control groups. So like I said, to me that just kind of makes sense, and I like using 3 control groups for my army. You can see if I want to add these guys, I can just do this. I can just add them to number 1 now. I can add something different to number 1. This is also why sometimes, I don't know if you guys ever noticed, but sometimes when I have sheep in my base, let me show you something. Sometimes I do this, which again, I don't know if you noticed, or someone maybe paid attention or something like that. I don't know, but sometimes I do this. Let me go back there. I'll bring the sheep. So sometimes I'll do something like this. I'll have these guys 1, 2, and 3, and let's say I don't want that, or I don't want my scout to be 1, 2, and 3. So what I'll do is, if I have some sheep here, my scout is 1, 2, and 3, but I only want it on 1. I'll take the sheep and I'll put it on 2 and 3, and then I'll kill it, and then the control group is lost, and then I'm just left with 1. And I know this is a maybe more complicated way of doing things, but again, I'm just kind of used to this, so yeah, that's it. You can control group sheeps, yeah. You can do whatever you want. That's a lot of work. Yeah, but the thing is, it is. But when I do these things, right, when I'm playing the game, you guys don't even notice these things. It's just a way to get out of control groups, basically, that you don't want to have. And that's why I constantly re-hotkey my control groups. Not constantly, but when I move around the map and stuff like that. There's also, I made another video where I explain how I do control groups based on the map positioning. So if you want to look at that, it's on my YouTube channel. I think it's, I don't know what's it called, to be honest. Someone in the chat might know. I forgot. But basically, depending where my units are on the map, I change the hotkeys to that. So like 1 is usually on the left side of the map, 2 is on the middle, 3 is on the right side of the map. And then if it's a main battle, I change the hotkeys again to where siege would be like on 2, or let's say siege is on 3, cavalry is on 2, archers are on 1. And then if those units split, the units on the left side become 1, the units in the middle become 2, the units on the right become hotkey number 3. So if you had 3 scouts, what would you do? Well, I just hotkey 1 to 1, second 1 to 2, and third 1 to 3. If you have an army and you want to remove the archers from the army, how would you do that? Okay, let me show you that as well. These things, like removing, like what you just asked me, I actually don't know the answer. I have to do it in game to see what I'm doing. So this is how my army starts, okay? This is, if you've seen me play, this is how my army starts. Right? So what I do is I want to, so I have them on all 3. What I want is I want spearmen and horsemen on the same hotkey, and archers on hotkey number 1. So there's 2 ways to do this. Either by holding control on the well, first of all, you can double select the archers, and then I just do control 1, right? So I can double select the archers, and I can do control 1. That's number 1, right? And then I can select these guys and control 2 and 3. So now these guys are only 1, these guys are 2 and 3. Another way to do it, which is probably what you're asking, is what I do here. Because sometimes you'll see me click stuff here, right? So the way I do that is there's 2 ways. I can either hold control with my palm, press on archers, and that will only select archers. And I can press control group number 1, which means that these guys just got excluded from that control group. And then I'll press 2, which is going to select everything again. And then I'll hold shift, press on the archers, and that excludes the archers. So whenever you have everything selected, holding control and pressing will select that unit. Holding shift and pressing will remove those units from the selection. Okay? Does that make sense? So if I'm playing and I'm attacking and I'm like, okay, it's time to go. If I want to put my archers in group number 1, I'll do something like this. Now they're group number 1. Then I press 2, exclude archers, and these are group number 2 and 3 now. And now they're separate groups. Does that make sense? Now there's a simpler way to do it. If this is too complicated or it's too much APM, you could technically just do this. If everything is on one hotkey, you can just select archers, double clicking, press control group number 1, then select these, press control group number 2 and 3, and you're done, right? But while my units are moving, I don't really want to, like, you know, double click and then misclick and you're like, oh my god. So this is a lot easier. So in real time, this is what that looks like, okay? So I'm moving my army, I'm about to fight my opponent. This is what that looks like in real time. There you go. So again, if you're moving your army, you select the archers. There you go. The army is now split. So it happens very, very quickly, and I get this question very often, like, what are you doing, or why are you clicking there, or how are you splitting your army? That's how that works. So again, if I'm moving my army, everything is now 1, 2, 3. I'm moving it, I select archers first, select them to control group number 1, and then I remove archers from 2 and 3. One more time. And there you go. And there it is. Now, if I have siege, it's the same process. So I'm going to show you that too. If I have siege, it's pretty much the same thing. Let's say I have this army, and this is pretty messy, right? Like, I'll just put a bunch of units in the same control group, right? Something happens, obviously. So this is my, what's it called? This is my army right now. Everything is in one. Everything is, you know, messed up. And I don't want this army to be on one hotkey, right? So what I would do is, the first thing I do is I exclude the siege. So in this kind of army, I would use 3 control groups. I would use number 1 would be my infantry and my cavalry, my main fighting army. Number 2 would be my mangonels. Number 3 would be my trebuchets. So what I do here is I'm going to select everything, right? I'm going to hold shift, exclude mangonels and trebuchets, hotkey to number 1, press 2, select mangonels, because pressing 2 or 3 now selects everything again. I press mangonels, but I do control to only select mangonels, hotkey them to number 2, and then I'm gonna press 3, press trebuchets, and hotkey them to number 3, and now the units are split. Does that make sense? Now, if I wanna send some cavalry around, this is something that happens very often that people might not realize. If I wanna send cavalry around, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna press 1, my whole army here. I'm gonna shift click the whole army and then hold shift and press knights and horsemen and re-hotkey these units into 1. So these guys are now free of their control group. This remains my control group, and now these guys are going raiding. Let's say I go back, right? Let's say I go back and I'm raiding on the other side. I go back and I'm not gonna fight with this army. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put these guys as control group number 3, these guys as control group number 1, and because this army is in the middle, this one is gonna go straight through the middle, it's gonna be number 2. So now if I hotkey, the way my brain works is bottom side of the map would be number 3 hotkey, middle is number 2, and 1 is here. So the way I work is I know whenever I press 1, 2, or 3, I know where my army is, okay? So I don't need I don't misclick like, oh my god, was my number 1 this or was my number 1 this? If I hear an attack here, I know that's a 1, okay? So let's say what happens if my armies are, so sometimes let's say he's chasing me from here and I'm going around with my army. Again, this happens in games all the time, you might miss it, but I'll actually press 1, hotkey them to 3, and I'll select these guys and hotkey them to 1. So now, these guys, because they're coming to this side of the map, they're becoming 1, these guys becoming 3 because they're on the bottom side, and these guys are still on number 2. If these armies connect with each other, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them 1 army, and now this army is 1 hotkey, and this army is hotkey number 1. And that's it. If you guys have any more questions in Twitch or YouTube, I am happy to answer. Again, I am very surprised that so many people did not use palm to press control, but I guess it's something that I never really thought about, and you guys don't see when I'm playing because, you know, my hand is just kind of doing this, right? But that's it. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Check me out on Twitch. I'm probably live right now. If you're watching on Twitch, let's keep going.